Now, we all know, that, I don't know if you'll have seen Rockstar. I'm sure everyone has seen Rockstar. I'm talking about the movie that Ranbir Kapoor was in. And he starts singing, and Anushka Sharma is like, that you don't sing soulfully. She's like, I sing well. She's like, no, but you're not singing soulfully. There has to something happen. And then he goes through pain, and he goes through a heartbreak, and there's a lot of pain, and then he starts singing well. Okay. I've not had such a dramatic start, but I did go through pain. Okay. So, and that is actually how it all started. So this is Ahmedabad, 2011. And then I entered CEF University for my master's. And in the first month that I was there, in the very first, not even first month, actually, the first semester, or second, third, I don't know, whatever, which month, this happened. So this is the one who's flying is me, and the one who is on the bike is an auntie who I've never seen because she hit me and ran away. So this, imagine, this is the my first entry in Ahmedabad. I don't like the city because I'm away from home. I'm away from family for the first time, and I'm somewhere who's always surrounded by people. So this entire idea of being lonely all of a sudden came as a shock to us. So anyways, I was hating the city to a core, and then this happened. So this, it was a hit and run case. She hit me and she left, and we had a major jaw dislocation, okay, and a tooth implant, and it was a bad scene. So so the depression had started getting in. I was like, oh God, what kind of a city is this I've just entered, and this is how it welcomes me. But to be honest, the whole idea of sketching came out from this incident, because it was after this incident took place we started realizing that it's easier to laugh out your miseries, and that's what we started doing. So in the first year and the first second year of Ahmedabad, we had started drawing every small incident that was happening to us during the whole journey. So this is one. So if you can see my cursor, this is how actually I started looking. My entire face was swollen up. It was like a goiter on the face, then on the neck. And I had misplaced tooth, and I don't know what I was thinking, but the pain and all started becoming easier because I started making fun out of it. Okay, so the idea of doodle started emerging from that, and thereafter every small incident. So these are people who had come for a jury. I started sketching them, and I used to take signatures of them in the jury. So this is Revati Kamath, that's Satya Varanasi, and that's Dean D'Cruz. I was terrible at drawing humans. I'm sure you all must be looking at like, my God, this is horrendous. Yes, this is horrendous. Okay, and I was also thinking that should I even show this, because but then I was like, no, this is how the journey started. This is how I have evolved as a person from the past, what, 8 years, 8 to 9 years. And it's very important to show that process. So this is what I used to sketch, but I didn't bother that time that my proportions of the humans are wrong, or my hands look all malnourished. And this Revati, I'm sorry, she looks really bad. But uh, but it was more important for me to actually just draw out that memory, because I don't believe a photograph can do that. So I remember this day completely well when this jury took place. It was one of the design competitions that we were shortlisted for. And I remember it so well because I sketched sitting in the jury. So I'm going to run through this because this is not the main idea of the whole presentation. I'll come to it when it starts. So this is how first earlier my travel sketches used to be. It used to be more of the people I used to travel with than the space actually. And so I have this knack. I still do this. Every place or every house that I changed during my 2 years of the stay in Ahmedabad, I started drawing an isometric plan view of it, just to understand that how we use the space. So we changed almost 2 houses then. So this is just a comparative of one. And mind you, we were still sketching in black then, okay? These are another couple of people that we met during our journey. They used to come for juries and electives. So the dialogues I used to say, I used to just like point out and write them around. So it's just easier to remember now. If I read this again, I exactly know what happened 8 years back and why I had made that drawing. It's just because it has been sketched out here today. So everything, every stupid incident. Now, if you see at this corner left is actually my friend who is she used a sunscreen on her hair thinking it's a hairspray. Now this is something that happened so spontaneously, but we could not take a picture of it. I mean, you can't take a picture of such things. So this is out of memory, just to remember that she was so stupid there. So if the Ahmedabad diary, this I would call, is like almost I used to draw one doodle each every day. But what happened is, okay, so this is not my diary. This is one of the artists that I used to really follow like crazy. He's Mario Mirinda, and he's from Goa. He's no more there now. But he was a major inspiration, and this is his diary. And the way and everything, details, every incident that used to take place in his house or wherever he used to travel, sorry, he used to document in these diaries. So that is how I had started documenting my my entire Ahmedabad process and this journey. But then, you know, later while I realized that because I was so inspired by Miranda, my illustrations have started to look like him because I used to take his work as references. Okay, and that is why now, even while I was drawing, I was not comfortable drawing because I used to go back, see his face. I was like, no, he draws his nose bigger. I should draw my nose bigger. It will look more funnier. So I had actually started replicating his style, forgetting that I had a style of my own, which I have not realized over these years, you know, while I was drawing. And so then the major breakthrough that happened. Okay, so this is like the first year when I'm still drawing and I'm still drawing in black. Now, why blue ink? How did the blue ink come in? It's not a very big story, but uh, so this was my first trip that no, actually, Ahmedabad, there were many trips that we had taken, but this is the first trip where the blue ink came in place. We had gone for a Padyatra. Padyatra is a journey on foot from Tivri. Tivri is a small village in Rajasthan to Ramdevra. This is actually a religious yatra that happens every year, and people walk across the whole state to come and worship Ramdevra to the main village. But we had taken this journey only for just seeing what village life is, and you know, it was a part of a bigger agenda. So we were just walking our way down. So during this trip, so I was sketching then also, but during this trip, what happened that while sketching, my black ink, the permanent marker that I used to draw, the ink ran off. Okay, so the only pen that I was left was with this cello gel pen, which was a blue color. So then I was very disappointed. I was like, this is the first sketch of my first trip, and this is the ink has ran off, you know. But then it was again a blessing in disguise because that's how blue came in. So these are a few sketches from that trip that we took, which is all in blue, and that's how the blue ink came in. Then later on, every time we went back to college. This was during the SEPT studying. We went back to college, and people were quite amazed that wow, blue ink. I mean, I didn't know that just a change in ink could completely drastically change the perspective of a drawing. So then we decided that maybe our documentary or our documentation of our drawings will be start called the blue ink. So yes, this is our journey to Ahmedabad. That like 2 years down, and then we came back to work and things like that. And then the first major, again, I would call it a breakthrough, happened was in October 2015. Okay, so from now onwards, the every journey that I say are the trips that I have taken all through the country, and almost I have 2, 3 trips which have been taken. But I'm not narrating you all the trips that I've taken. I'm narrating you all uh, things that happened in the trip that made the trip very memorable for me. So those collectively, they all are a part of a bigger memory. So Himachal Pradesh, 2015 October, I was still working at a firm, and it was 2 years down after I'd come back from my SEP, and I was working there, and I was actually sort of irritated with the kind of work that I was doing. It was very monotonous and not really liking what I was doing. So I went and told my boss that, listen, this is not working for me. She's like, no, 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 I'll give you. So he tried to show me down, but I don't know what happened that day, and I put in my resignation. I mean, it was just a very impromptu decision. It was like I put in my resignation that very day, and I was waiting for the day to get over so that I could send him across. And that night, I booked a ticket to leave for Delhi. Okay, uh, so I will go back here. Okay, so this is what I try to do while I travel. I'll come back and I'll make a little plan of the things that the places that I've been to. This also helps me to remember what places I visited during that time. So if you see, this is sorry, yeah, and you see this is Delhi. Okay, so now I'll run through what actually the the way this trip happened is a very major thing for me than rather than just what happened in the trip. So it was, I'd left my job, okay. I'd not told at home that I was going for this trip that I was taking. And I just told them that I was teaching as a visiting faculty in Rizvi that time. Okay, listen, again, I'm going to make this clear. Everything that I'm saying now is not supposed to be taken for granted. Okay, I mean, it is what I have done, and it could be a mistake also. So you're not learning from here, you're just listening to the story. Uh, so and I'm not told at home. I told them that the college is going for a study trip and I'm just joining them. I just hope none of the family members are listening to this. But yes, so I left for Delhi. This was going to be my first trip all by myself. And it's a major thing because I have never been alone on a trip. And that also so far. For a trip that I didn't even know because I didn't have an itinerary. Okay. But till date, I don't make itineraries for trip. That is another thing, but that is things that you're not supposed to do. So that is why my presentation is called how not to travel. You should not travel without an itinerary, because if you travel without one, this is what happens. So I didn't know where was I going. I just knew I had to reach Delhi, and from Delhi I would decide where ahead I was going to go. So that day I came back from office, I packed my bags, and I left for Delhi. So this is Delhi. Sorry. Okay, this is Delhi, and I'm standing there at the national terminal of Delhi, which takes you to the state buses. Some of them take you to Himachal, some of them take you to Chandigarh. So I was standing there and I was wondering that, okay, where to go? Should I go to Chandigarh or should I go to Himachal? Okay, I mean, this is how my trip, the itinerary was prepared, standing at the bus terminal of Delhi. And then I decided that, okay, let's go to Himachal. I've heard a lot of it. Okay, I don't know what is Himachal. I don't know what kind of spaces are in Himachal. So we decided to leave for Himachal. So this is basically our entire trip that we do. Uh, I'm just going to run you through the path that we taken. From Delhi to Pathankot, we take a night bus. Okay, that was also something that you all should not do. You should not travel in the night. I'll tell you what happens later. So from Pathankot, we did Dalhousie to Khajjar to Chamba, then back to Dharamshala, and all these. This is basically this entire route and the places that we visited during the trip. Now, okay, so the trip was one hell of a journey, and my major realization, because I was traveling all alone throughout the trip. So there were decisions that I had to make that I had no one to ask first, is because no one knew where I was. But I'd done one thing. I'd informed one friend that I was going to be here. And every time I used to get network, I used to call him and tell him, listen, I'm here. So in case if I go missing, there is at least one person who's aware that where I am. So, so all of this trip that we took alone, we reached Bir. Okay, now if you can see my cursor, that's Bir, and Bir is supposed to be like the second most amazing place in Asia. I think the second best place in Asia for paragliding. So this is what happened. Okay, I reached Bir, and how we make our itinerary is that we used to ask the locals that you tell us what is good here, what is bad here. So someone told that you go here. These people do paragliding. So I was like, okay, let's go check out. Now, apparently, what happened? This is after the paragliding took place. Before that, we reached Bir, and those people told that sorry, the paragliding has been shut because there's supposed to be a World Cup of paragliding happening. So that is why these are all the participants that are here, and the local pilots that take you all there are no more functioning. So I was quite disappointed because I'd come from very far. I'd climbed the entire 2 kilometers of mountain uphill, and I was not being able to do the paragliding. So while leaving, there was this man I saw at the mountain, and he was with a paraglide. So I asked him that, how come you got to go? He's like, no, I am one of the participants, and I'm just practicing. So I was like, okay, so you are anyways going to land down. She's like, yeah, I'm going to land down. Then I asked him that it was okay, could I come along? So he's like, yeah, sure, why not? I will anyways get practice. So I told him, I asked him, obviously we just left a job. So we had to be in a budget kind of a scenario. So he's like, how much will you charge? Like, no, I'm not charging you anything. This is a part of my practice. So just come along. And he came, and I took a ride with him. And the best part is because he was one of the participants and he was practicing there, so he was doing all the possible stunts that normally a pilot won't do. Okay. And so I was in air for like 45 minutes, which normally is like a 15 to 20-minute ride. And this is the sketch I drew after I came down. So when I came down, I realized the whole sky was filled with these paragliders of different colors, sizes, and shapes. Because this was going to be a World Cup. This is the first time a World Cup of paragliding was going to happen. So this is some of the pros that happen when you don't make an itinerary. You don't know something like this is happening, and you just happen to see it. So it just feels so much better that you are not planned for this, and this has happened. So this is us drawing all of those gliders, which look like little blots of paint in the sky. You know, I mean, this is. I'm really telling you, this is not even 1% of the paragliding that had happened there. There were like hundreds and hundreds of paragliders in the sky. Okay, so this is one other. This is actually the last day in Himachal, and someone had told me that everyone who comes to McLeodganj goes for this trip. That is Triund. Okay, there's a trek at Triund. I was not supposed to do that because honestly, I didn't have the health to climb that, and it was supposed to be a difficult trek. So I was just walking back to my place, and I met this female. She was from Mexico, and she is like, are you living? Are you a local here? I was like, no, I'm a tourist. So she's like, okay, fine. Sorry. So she's like, no, I'm a tourist. I've come to climb the Triund. So I was like, okay, so you've come to McLeod only for Triund. She's like, yeah, I've come to McLeod only for Triund. So this was some kind of a sign that was happening that I was not supposed to do Triund. And then suddenly this female who walks in and she's like, she is going to Triund. And I was like, is it okay if I join you in? And she's like, yeah, sure. More the merrier. Anyways, and she was also traveling alone. She had come from Mexico and she was doing a trip to India all alone. So she's like, yeah, come along. And that is how Triund happened, you know. And honestly, it was such a difficult trek. But because of this female who I just met like an hour back, she treated me like as if, you know, and she was like a professional trekker, okay. So every time I used to get exhausted, she's like, yes, Fatma, you can do it. Come on. And she had carried everything necessary for the trip. So she had nuts with her, and I was so not prepared. But you know, like imagine Triund had to happen, and I had to meet that girl. And this is how Himachal was. Like it was one crazy trip that I did alone, and okay, I'll end this. Yeah. Okay. So now going back to the next, which was Bhutan 2016. Okay. This trip I done with another friend. Now again, there is there's no itinerary in this trip. Okay. Only thing is that there is Bhutan, and we know that we have to reach to this point, Phunsholing, and from there we have to see these certain cities. But what we are doing in those cities, we have no idea. So this is the whole this is sort of the whole trip that we made through and the places that we visited during Bhutan. Now the thing with Bhutan is that if you belong to one of the SAARC countries, you can move around Bhutan without a guide. And because we belong to India, we could move around without a guide. The rest of the people had to compulsorily take a guide. So now going without a guide was somewhat, we were lucky in that ways because we were not restricted to the kind of places we had to see. So anyways, going back to what we saw. Now this is this first image. Every time you type Bhutan on your Google, this is the first image that you will see. Okay, that is the tiger's nest. And I avoid drawing things that are monumental, but something really crazy happened here. So Bhutan was really cold. Okay, when we reached, it was very cold. So we were just wondering that if you're going so early in the morning to this trek, we'll have to layer ourselves. Okay, so we had layered ourselves to an extent that as if it was going to snow there. Okay, and that was the biggest mistake because while climbing, we didn't realize that you start feeling hot. Okay, so everything that was on us, we had to remove it and we had to climb with all of that weight. You know. So then the entire trip, we were like cribbing and we were like, you know, cursing ourselves that why did we rest so much first? Because we had to remove it um, through the journey. Now, while climbing, we found many people. So there were a lot of Europeans that come to this place during this time, during the October time. And there was this uncle who didn't look very old, and he just randomly came and he started cheering us up. Come on, come on, one more hour to go, come on. And and we were exhausted. We were not even halfway there, and we were exhausted. And I just happened to ask him that, uncle, how old are you? So he's like, I'm 84. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, looking at his energy and looking at the state that we were in, I mean, literally, that was like, this is how our stamina is for the kind of life we live. So that was Tiger's Nest for us. I'm going to skip this one. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this is because Bhutan was a part of a longer trip. We were on road for like 24 days, and we had a return ticket from Bhutan to go to Delhi because we were supposed to join a study tour with the third years to Delhi. But we finished Bhutan in 8 days. Okay, I mean, we finished what we had to see in Bhutan, and we were like, we have still a week left before we have to take a flight from Delhi. So what to do? So just sitting there in Bhutan, we decided, okay, we can't go home back, so let's go to Sikkim. And that's how Sikkim happened. Okay, like sitting in Bhutan, we have one more week to go. What to do? Let's go to Sikkim. So the next thing we know is next day we leave for Sikkim. So this is Phuntsholing. That's our exit to Bhutan, and this is the way. So we are back in India now. Huh? Bhutan is not a part of India. That's the only international trip I've made. So this is Phuntsholing, and now we are back to India, and now we go to Sikkim. So this is the whole way that we take to go into Sikkim. And this is Diwali, okay? And we reached Gangtok on the night of Diwali. And when we reached Gangtok, all the hotels and everything are empty because obviously no one is traveling on the day of Diwali. So we got even the hotel and everything very cheap. So next morning we get up in Gangtok, and we just seeing the city around. And there is a mall road, like there's a mall road every hill station. We go to the mall road of Gangtok, and me and my friend are like, dude, this is not happening. We can't stay here. This is too touristy. What will we do in Gangtok? All we see is honeymooning couples, all family and children. Like, this is not the place for us. So sitting there in Mall Road, we decide, okay, let's Google uh, something interesting. And what do we land up Googling? Okay, so we Google tribes of Sikkim. I mean, this is legit what we Googled, tribes of Sikkim, because we didn't want to stay in the touristy area. And luckily, someone had written a blog about the Lepcha tribe, which is in the north of Sikkim. So now, one thing that we know that there is a Lepcha tribe that's in the north of Sikkim, and we have to reach north of Sikkim. Now we don't know where is this Lepcha tribe, how are we going to find the Lepcha tribe, nothing. So we decide, okay, so we have to take special permission to go to the north of Sikkim, and we somehow get the permission, and we reach Tingwong, that's North Sikkim, and we are still searching for this Lepcha tribe people. That who are these people? Now we don't know where we are going to stay, how these tribal are going to be. Nothing. We have no idea of all this. So now while traveling, while we are on our way, we are searching for places that, okay, if we are reaching North Sikkim, where are we going to stay? And we land up to this place, okay? Now, if you see this now, this is actually a landslide that had just occurred. So our way to North Sikkim was stopped because there was a landslide and there was no way to cross the road. Now, this obviously Google is not going to tell you because this happened just a week back, and people who were stuck on this side were stuck because there was a landslide. So you see all these trees which are there, they were emerged and immersed, and there was a bridge that was connecting, which had also gone underwater. Okay. Now, me and my friend are looking at each other. It's like, oh God, dude, we should have figured this out because there is no place to stay. We are in a local area and there is a landslide. There is no way to go. And then someone told us that, no, there are these government boats that will take you across, but they function only like once in 3 hours or once in 4 hours. So we were like, okay. And by that time, we had figured out that there is one homestay which is there in this Lepcha tribe area. So here we are on the other side of the landslide, just waiting till our boat comes. Maybe the boat will come, maybe the boat will not come. It is not sure. So we've made our arrangements that in case the boat doesn't come, we started making friends with the local people and just trying to figure out that if the boat doesn't land up, where are we going to stay the night? But fortunately, the boat did land up. And this is where we came. So Okay, actually, I'll come here first. I'll tell you this. So, so finally we reached this homestay around like 8:30, 9 in the night, and that man is like, I'm just surprised even you all found me, because I have shut this homestay for over a month because of the landslide. No one was coming, and we didn't even call him. Okay, there was no phone call. We just reached by asking local people that where is this guy existing. So so he was not prepared for us. There was no food prepared also at the same time for us. And then he just casually told us that what would you all have for dinner. So I was like, whatever you all are cooking locally, just give us that. So he's like, will you all have grasshoppers? And we were like, what? He's like, yeah, that is made locally. And so we were thinking that he's just fooling us around. And but then that night we actually had grasshoppers. He went out, he came with this huge bottle of Pepsi, an empty bottle of Pepsi where there were like full grasshoppers stuffed in. And I'm like, oh my god. Now it would be very rude to tell him that, okay, listen, you've done all this thing for us, but we are not going to eat the grasshoppers. But there he is, okay, and he's like, no, no, sit and watch me make them. And there we are sitting in his living room, okay. He has this whole bowl of warm water, and he empties the live grasshoppers there, and you're seeing them, they're all almost dying there in the warm water. And finally, yeah, the grasshoppers are dead, they stop fluttering. Then he's like, come see. I was like, oh no, not really. So after they are dead, there is this process where he like rips their wings off. Okay, no, he doesn't remove the head, he removes the wings off, and the whole preparation is on. And then the last part is the deep frying of the grasshopper. And very nicely, this is the plate that he sort of, gave in front of us, where there's grasshoppers and a little chutney next to it. And he's like, come try. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, and it is one of that people prepare food with a lot of hope so that the guest will like it. So he's just looking and staring at us. So it's not that I can even, cheat not eating it. Okay. So I had one bite and I had the second bite, and honestly, it just tasted like some good fried food. I mean, we could not. I mean, if you don't look at it, they didn't look like grasshoppers. But if you obviously, if you had to see them and eat them, then you will know what you are eating. Okay. So this is a beautiful dinner we had that night with this nice. This is the local alcohol which is made of millet seeds. And this is a very interesting story. Is like he filled a huge jar of alcohol for us in this, and he asked me that will you be able to finish it. So I was like, why are you asking that? So he's like, no, because in us it's a ritual. If you start with this, you're going to finish it. And I was like, oh my god, this is too much pressure. But because this took a very long time for him to make, we actually had that whole jar. Okay, this is the same guest house. Okay, and this is so we reached in the night, so we didn't know actually where we were. And in the morning when we got up, my friend, he came. This is Wasim there in the, if you see this here, is my friend Wasim, and he came running. He's like, Fatima, come out, see what you can see. And I was damn excited. I was like, what is it? And he told me that there is a hand pump. And I was like, what? So not realizing that the place that we were, we could see Kanchenjunga right next to us. So this ice peak that you see is Kanchenjunga. Okay, I might not give a very good representation of that, but it was very, very close. But we didn't consider that, and we considered a hand pump, which was actually the moment of joy for us. The reason being is that we were like 12 days down a trip. We were in Bhutan. Bhutan was super cold. We had no way that we could wash our clothes because it was so cold. Okay, so the only thing that gave us joy was there was sunlight and there was a hand pump where we could wash our clothes. Because after Bhutan, we were supposed to do an extended trip to Delhi. So this is actually the highlight of this part of the homestay, that we got soap and we got water and we got sunlight that could dry our that could dry our clothes. Which actually for everyone who is traveling it's like a major breakthrough. That wow, I can wash and wear clean clothes. So that's the story of Himachal. I'm sorry. So later, so now, like I told you that we had to join the students in Delhi. So this is the same trip that we are still extending. We are 15, I think 16 to 17 days still on road, and Delhi comes in. There's only one story I want to share with Delhi. Delhi, personally, I don't like that city at all. It just gives me a very, very negative vibe. And every time I've been there now, I've just come by with such bad memories other than intact. Okay, yeah. I'm sure everyone must be raising their eyes and telling that, oh God, we had intact in Delhi. But yeah, other than the Delhi intact, all my trips to Delhi have been a disaster. So, but this time Delhi was going to be special because I was going to see Taj Mahal for the first time. Okay. And I was like, I had a childlike excitement to see the Taj Mahal because that, like, I'd already traveled so much in India, but imagine I'd not seen Taj Mahal. So I was like, and I was actually sort of prolonging because of the hype that was created in Taj Mahal. And this is honestly what I saw. Okay, uh, to me, Taj Mahal was very, very disappointing because for everyone who's been to Taj Mahal, sorry, you know that the first sight that you see of Taj Mahal is through this one gate. Okay, and the thing that first I saw through the gate was not the Taj Mahal, but was these hundreds and hundreds of people who had raised their cameras to take a picture of Taj Mahal. So my first sight of Taj Mahal itself was so disappointing. And this is exactly what I remember about Taj Mahal. Even after, I'm not saying that it is a glorious monument, okay, with all the marble details and all, but because there is so much tourist that goes there, and the risking that happens at every level and every stage, it sort of dilutes your whole excitement of what the Taj actually is. So that's the only thing I want to share about Delhi. Otherwise, we don't like that city. Okay, sorry. This if you see at the corner of the presentation, there is something I write there. So I have categorized each of my sketches into three parts. They're called as mistakes, memories, or mishaps. So this is a mistake. Delhi is a mistake. Okay. Now coming to Kashmir. Yes, Kashmir. Um, so now we are in 2017. This is my trip to Kashmir. This trip is, I think, with all the memories and mishaps and mistakes, I mean, it's one of the best trips that I've had so far. Okay? The first part of the trip, I was traveling alone, and then another friend, again, Wasim, joined me to for Ladakh. But for this trip, I was staying at Tanya's house. But I was just honestly just using Tanya's house for lodging and boarding, and the rest of the trip, I was moving around on my own. So this is how the trip started off with Jammu, and Srinagar is where Tanya lives. So I was moving in and around Srinagar. So we visited Gulmarg and Pelgam and Anantnag. Oops, sorry, Sonmarg. And then from Srinagar, we did our trip to Leh Ladakh. But this presentation has two different parts. One part which is talking about Kashmir, and the other part which talks about Ladakh. So, Tanya, I'm telling you, giving you my apologies from Pehle only. If architecturally I use the wrong term, so please forgive me for the same. So that's Kashmir.
थोड़ा पानी पी ले.
Sorry, pani. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so just a few places. This is Gulmarg. Okay, now Gulmarg, Sonmarg, Pergam are like, these are the few names that you will anyone will talk about when you're talking about Kashmir. But again, we were not looking at tourist locations. Okay, so the guy who was taking us around, we were on horseback, and we told him that यहाँ पे कोई ऐसे गांव है क्या यहाँ पे जहाँ पे जो local लोग रहते हैं and all. So first he didn't understand why would we want to see a village, I mean, no one will understand ever as architects why we want to see villages. So he's like, हाँ यहाँ पे है ये गुज्जर लोग रहते हैं. So Gujjars are basically they're nomads, and they stay in so nomads as in so like how people like they are for one part of the year. That means during the summers they are residing somewhere else, and during the winters they move back. So this is one very beautiful house. It is so crude, like because they stay in the forest. The houses are made in a way that they merge with the landscape. So if at a distance you can't see the house because there's only grassland that is growing around. So that is one very fond memory I have of Gulmarg, is when we saw this site. So they're very crude houses. Like there is no finished like a finished work. It's like just logs of wood which are tied together, and this entire roof has a garden growing, which exactly merges the lawn which is around. So you can't really see that place at all. So that's Gulmarg for you. Okay. So this is Jama Masjid. This is again Srinagar, and this has a very, very fond. Now you see, I have written mistake, mishap, memory, all three in this particular sketch. Just 1 minute. Sorry. Okay, the reason being is, okay, I had already visited this mosque once with Tanya and her family, and then there was one other day which I was like, I'll just go around and see the city. So, and that was a Friday, okay. And Tanya, when I left the house, Tanya warned me that, listen, you go everywhere, please don't go to downtown, and don't go visiting Jama Masjid, okay, because today is Friday, and uh, God forbid something or the other will happen during the in and around the mosque. Now, what happened is that Tanya said something that we love listening to. Okay, she said, "Don't go there. Don't." She used the words, "Don't go there." Okay, so these are things that, you know, my doppelganger, the evil person inside me, is like, okay, now she's told me not to go there. That means I have to go. I don't think Tanya knows that I actually went on a Friday to Jama Masjid again. So this was my second trip to Jama Masjid. But I was still, at least that was that I didn't go during the namaz time that she had told me. So I was like, I'm not completely cheating Tanya. I'm going after namaz. That's after the afternoon prayers. So I went to Jama Masjid, and I'm sitting here and I'm sketching this scene. Okay, this is exactly where I'm sitting and sketching. And suddenly I hear some chaos. Okay, and I hear firing. And I for a minute I thought it was thundering. I didn't know it was firing because it was still raining there in Kashmir during that time. So and then I see people in the masjid running here and there, okay, and I was like, oh, this is not something that we are prepared for. So there is this one family that comes, and they just literally drag me without even asking me what am I doing. Okay, they just drag me and they take me inside the mosque, and they're like, what are you doing? So I didn't know what was happening. I was like, kya hua? What happened? What actually happened? It's like, this is Friday, and normally there's going to be stone pelting or something has happened outside. We are not aware because we are inside the mosque, and this is what is happening outside the mosque. And I'm shivering there because I don't really know. She's asking me questions. Okay, she's asking me, where are you from? What you're doing? This, that. I can't answer anything. Now she understood that I was really scared, and she's like, don't worry, you are a guest here, and no matter what happens in Kashmir, okay, they will not harm the guest, and they will never harm the guest, okay. And so you don't worry, no matter what happens around, you will not be hurt. She just said that, and then suddenly, so this is all happening within like 15-20 minutes, and suddenly everything is pin drop silence, okay. Now I don't hear any noise, I don't hear any chaos. And then she's like, okay, now you can go. And I was like, are you sure? She's like, yeah, this is routine. This will happen. Then people get back to life. And but this was the first time for me that I was in between something which I was not expecting. Okay, and I go out of this mosque, and life is back to normal. Like, you will not believe that there was a firing that happened, or some kind of something happened there. Okay, but yeah, so that is my memory of this Jama Masjid. And by far, actually, I've seen a lot of Jama Masjids all over the country, including Delhi, and the biggest one being the Delhi and all. This is far the best Jama Masjid I've seen. It's because if you see the architectural part of it, it doesn't look like how a mosque would represent. It has this, the Chinese pitch roof influence on it. Plus, the scale of the mosque is amazing. So I want to add it because I have a lot of architecture students looking at this presentation. Okay. So yeah, this is something that I something that every time I narrate this story, like even before I start the story, I'm getting a little goosebumps. So this is the inside of a car, and you see those beautiful graphics here are definitely not graphics. Yeah. So this is basically there in all the vehicles, all the travel vehicles of Kashmir. Okay? You will see these things which are there. So I just happened to ask the driver कि ये हर गाड़ी पे क्यों है? So he's like, अरे ये तो bullet के marks है, and some of them are stone pelting marks, and this we get in we get it in Dahej. Dahej is like dowry. So more the marks that you have on your car, it's like you've lived a more adventurous life, for that matter. But this is not the thing that happened. we were coming back from, I think, from our trip from Pahalgam and all of that. And we were heading to, we were heading back to Srinagar. That's back to Tanya's house we were heading. And this is what happened in Anantnag. So the moment, so Anantnag is one of the stations just before you reach Srinagar. And we reached Anantnag and he parked the car where the stand was, the car stand was. And we saw stampede, okay? We saw stampede, we saw people running, and then we heard continuous firing, okay? And we were like, oh my God, what is this? So this driver, he's like that, idhar cross firing ho gayi hai, aap utar jao, you get down over here, because I don't think you will be able to go to you will be able to reach Srinagar now. And we were like, dude, this is in between a stampede. How do we even get down? So this fellow is like that, okay, fine, you don't get down here, I will drop you a little ahead, let's see what is happening. So there is stampede, people are still running, there is firing happening, there are people throwing stones, and it's all in middle, we are still stuck in this vehicle, okay? And we have no idea that how are we going to make ourselves back to Srinagar. There are all these weird thoughts coming, and this fellow, he drops us to a place, and he's like, you all stay put here, please don't get down, because I don't think in between all of this, will anyone be ready to take you out to Srinagar? So in the meanwhile, there is someone comes yelling that this is the last vehicle that is going to Srinagar, who are also come in. So when me and my friend, they hop in, we take this vehicle, and the moment the vehicle starts, okay, all these men around who we've just like pushed ourselves, like trying to fit maximum number of people to move out of this situation and leave for Srinagar. The moment I'm inside this car, I start crying. Like I start crying like mad, okay? Like I didn't know what happened, and all these men around, they are shocked because they don't know that what happened. And so after I calmed down, they asked me that what happened. She's like, hey, we were in between this cross firing and this happened. And so this man, okay, he's an absolute stranger. He doesn't still know who we are. He doesn't know our names and all. He's like, why are you worrying so much? Even if you can't reach Srinagar, you'll come to my house. And we were like there is an absolute stranger who's not even met us like 5 minutes, and he's ready to take us home. And in that 5 minutes, he got his wallet out. He got photographs of his family out, and he's like, see, this is my family. I have 3 daughters. I have my wife. They'll cook you a good meal. You all don't worry. You all come to my place. You all don't go to Srinagar. You all stay tonight at my place and leave tomorrow. And I couldn't stop crying. And now I was not crying for the fear. I was crying for the kind of hospitality that Kashmir is. Sorry. But the reason why I am bringing this up today, and it's very important, is that we see what media shows us, what Kashmir is, and trying to show that how people in Kashmir are, you know, how they are against the military and how they are behaving with the military. But that is not what Kashmir is. This is exactly what Kashmir is, and this is what the people in Kashmir are. You know? Like this man, who we are absolute strangers, we could be anyone, is ready to take us to his house, is ready to feed us, only because we are so scared of what happened. You know? So this has absolute major mark of what. So whatever the world says over, this is what Kashmir is. It's like the most humblest part of the country, to be honest. Sorry, I'm a little bit choked just now. Okay. Yes, Manthan, is there a time limit or something? Because I'm not sure how far I can go on.
We have 2 hours.
No, we have, yes. Go ahead. You
time,
don't
right?
worry.
Yes,
okay.
Time. Okay, because I don't think I'm even halfway to the presentation.
No worries.
Thank you so much, Farah. Yeah, thank you. So that's Kashmir, okay? So weirdly, I was in Kashmir, and then my friend, he calls up and he's like, listen, you want to do Leh Ladakh or what? So this is how my Leh Ladakh trip happened. And I was like, yeah, we can do Leh Ladakh, but I don't think the roads are still open for Ladakh, because Ladakh roads open after the summers, no? During the winters, they shut the roads of Ladakh. So the moment the summer starts and the stone starts melting, that's when they open the roads of Ladakh. So then he's like, no, I checked online and all. They are going to start opening the roads. So we will go to Ladakh. So I was like, okay, fine. And Kashmir had a little situation that was going on because of one of the militants who, was a death anniversary. So they were supposed, so there was a rumor that there was going to be an indefinite curfew going to happen. So I was like telling Tanya. Tanya was very skeptical to send me to Ladakh, okay? And she's like, nahi, nahi, yaar, aise kaise ja sakte ho? And I was like, listen, here, anyways, if the curfew happens, we all are going to be in home arrest, okay? So it's rather I go to Ladakh where there will be nothing, and I'll be better to go home after Ladakh. So after a lot of debate, she agrees. She's like, okay, fine, you'll leave for Ladakh. So that's how Ladakh happened. But now, mind you, I was in Kashmir. I was not prepared for a trip of Ladakh because Ladakh was going to be minus 15, and I was coming from Srinagar, which was 22 degrees. Okay, so I had clothes which was 22 degrees, fit for 22 degrees, and not for minus 15 degrees. That was what Ladakh was in. So this is what our Ladakh trip was. From Srinagar, we took a road trip via Kargil, and we reached Ladakh. So we left, and the first instance, okay, we are still on our way. We've not even reached Kargil, and this happens, okay. Just to give you a background, the idea of this whole presentation of how not to travel is we very strongly believe that every time we travel, something has to happen, like something major mistake or a major accident for a trip to be successful, okay. So this is, we've just left. We are like 2-3 hours from Kashmir, we've left. We've reached the Zozela Pass. Now, Zozela Pass is one of the coldest peaks of Ladakh, okay? And the roads are really bad because summer has just started, the snow is melting, and all the water is on the road, you know. So if you see, this is exactly how the road is. The road is very stony, it's not cemented, and you need a very, very tough car. So we are in Innova, this is an Innova riding on. Toyota Innova that is riding on. And if you see, both the tires here are punctured. So, both the tires are punctured, and that is what happened. Okay, so on our way to Kargil, our tires were punctured. Now every car has one stepney that has one spare, but here 2 of our tires are gone. And I got down of the car, and they were like, "Okay, you have to get out of the car because we have to get, uh, we'll have to see what is happening to the car." And we got out of the car, and the temperature outside is minus 15. So we were inside the car, we were with the heater, so we didn't realize what the temperature is, but minus 15, and we were like, oh my god. Now there is no idea how long this is going to take. We have one spare, but we can't drive with one spare and one punctured tire. So we are there, the driver is constantly, you know, all the vehicles that are moving is asking for help, that please give us one of the spare. But no one is going to be ready to give you their spare because they know the roads are going to be very, very bad, and they are going to face the same situation. So we are standing here, it's almost been like 45 minutes, 1 hour, freezing cold, okay, believe me, freezing cold. And we got our bags down, and how many of our layer of clothes we had stuffed in our bag were on us because we were there in the cold. Then luckily that a car came, and then they exchanged greetings, and they were like, okay, in Kargil, we'll give you your we'll give you a spare bag, but we need to reach Kargil. We need to get out of the snow. So that's the first incident that happened in Ladakh, okay? And I told my friend Basim, again, here he was. I told him that, listen, now I think our trip is going to be fantastic because this disaster has already happened. So it's like, you know, for anything fruitful to happen, some disaster needs to start with. So this disaster was done, and now we were hoping that the trip goes perfect, okay? So this is one of the other days where this is again a mistake. If you see at this now, why? Because we decided that we will go to Khardungla Pass. Khardungla Pass is one of the like topmost, the highest motorable peak in the whole of the Asia. Okay, so that is why it becomes like a checkpoint that I went to Ladakh and I didn't go to Khardungla. It's not possible. So this hero Vasim is like, listen, we will not take car, we will take the bike. And I was like, are you serious? Will you be able to ride? She's like, yeah, we'll take the bike. So I was like, okay, fine, as long because you're the one who's going to ride, huh? So he, like in hero, he took the bike, and again we were not prepared for this snow. Okay, so this sketch that you see is here actually of all the layers of clothes that I was wearing underneath because we didn't have the clothes for going to Khardungla. And that is the biggest mistake. Okay, this is not, you're not supposed, you don't go, please be prepared for the place that you're going, don't be like us. And if you see the choice of shoes that we had, I had floaters with me. I mean, like, who wears floaters to a temperature that is minus 15 degrees? So anyways, we did reach Khardungla, but in one piece. But after that, the amount of Maggie we have hogged on just because, not that that was the only thing available, which was, but because it was so crazy cold. Okay, so that's one crazy memory. That's one thing how not to travel. So Ladakh was a series of mistakes. Okay. Now I don't know if you recognize this, but this is Pangong Lake. Pangong Lake is the Three Idiot fame lake, which is the last scene where um, Amir Khan is there and Kareena Kapoor goes running and hugging, and that is a scooter, that yellow scooter. That so this entire thing, obviously, Pangong became famous after the Three Idiots thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this ride of Pangong was again a mistake. It's because we were not getting a vehicle and we were two of us. So we didn't want to take the entire vehicle because again, we are on a budget trip and it is very expensive. Okay. So it was like 6,000-7,000 for entire vehicle. And we are like, mad, chuck it, we will not go to Pangong. It's okay. We will see it in the photographs. So, but we were still feeling bad that we came so far and we could not go and see Pangong. And Pangong is like another 6 hours from Leh Ladakh, okay, from Leh. So we were like, okay, let's see, let's bargain and see if she's ready to reduce the price, then it's fine. But they were not ready to reduce because it was a high tourist time and no one was ready to reduce and pay only for two of us. So we were even ready that if there's another family who can just incorporate the two of us, then we will share the price and go with them. But that didn't happen. But then when we went back to the hotel, this female calls and there's a vehicle available, and the vehicle is for 3,500. And we were like, wow, really 3,500 entire vehicle to us? It's like, yeah. So then we were like, okay, fine, give it to us. We didn't even hear her ahead, okay? So she's like, no, but you at least listen to, like, no, we are coming to your office and we'll take the vehicle, we'll give you the advance. We go to our office and she, like, there is this, every time you take an insurance policy, there is like conditions apply. So there was a little condition applied that she told us. And very, very slowly, softly, she said, see, there is no problem with the vehicle, only that ye gaadi mein na suspension nahi hai. So, like, listen, I don't know what a suspension in the car does, okay? I am sorry, I am very illiterate. I don't know what, but neither did this Wasim, okay? He to drives, but he also didn't know what a suspension was actually going to. He's like, हाँ ठीक है क्या होगा नहीं है suspension ठीक है. So we took the car. It was for 3,500. We took the suspension vehicle without the suspension and we drive. It's fine. The first 2 hours of the journey is fine, but the moment the winding starts, okay. So now, for illiterate people who don't know like me that what a suspension does, a suspension basically absorbs all the shocks that the car gets while driving. Okay, and this road was so bad, like so bad. Like even what Ladakh was, this was like 10 times worse. Again, because the summers had just started and there was water everywhere. So a very, very stony road, and we are driving on this road to Pangong. Honestly, for the next 4.5 hours, me and our friend were continuously puking, okay? Because the car was jumping so much. Every organ in our body is like, dude, why are you doing this to us? Why did you take that vehicle? And the just jumping and jumping and jumping. And the whole journey, we've just vomited. That's the only thing I remember about Pangong, is that through the journey, all what we were doing is we were puking. So by the time we reached Pangong and we saw this amazing, amazing sight of the lake, we were so sick and tired that we were like, God, I mean, seriously, this was not worth it for the trouble that we've been through. So yeah, that was the Pangong memory for us. This is lesson number 350. Don't travel without a suspension in the vehicle. Don't be stupid like us. Huh. Okay. So Kochi Biennale is for those who don't know, every year there is this major art festival that happens in Kochi, which is called as the Kochi Biennale. And I make sure that I go for this every year. The reason why this is important for not only architects, but everyone who belongs to art fraternity is that this whole city, this is beautiful Kochi. I think few of the students did even go there for the study trip. So
Yes.
every year this Kochi is used as an art gallery. The whole city is used as an art gallery, and these small pockets in the city are used to exhibit art and art installations. So for those, like for that entire 1 month or 2 months, I think it goes on for 3 months or something. For entire 3 months, the entire city is like converted to the art gallery. So it's not one place of art. You're just walking through the city. It's beautiful, and in these small cafes and old houses and old places, these art installations take place. Now, the reason I'm not going to explain any of that, it's just that there was this in 2018, right? I'm in 2018. Yes, I'm in 2018. There was this one major art installation which had a major impact on me, which is what I'm going to share you with. Okay. So this installation is, I'm the reason I'm sharing you is because a lot of this people I'm presenting to you are architects, you know, and how space can just change or create an emotion for that reason. So this is nothing. This is like a shed which was created. And what the artist here is Raul Zurita. What he done is that this whole place is like a, like if you see this place was filled with water. Okay. Now, when you enter this place now, the level of the water is just straight. Like you see one clear line of water. And this red part that you see is basically the installation or is the artwork. Okay. But when you enter this place, you cannot read the artwork. So in order to see what the artwork is, you have to pass through this entire water, this entire pool of water that the artist had created. Okay. Now, when you start walking, you don't realize something that as you start walking, the water starts getting deeper and deeper. Okay. And you can't see this because when you enter, the water looks at one straight level. And okay, now I'll tell you what this installation was. So as you move, you start entering and the water starts getting deeper. And by the time you reach this red now, or the main installation, about what the installation is about, what the artwork is, it sort of it creates an inquisitiveness to you too, because you want to see the artwork, and that is why you start walking down in the water. Okay. And the water gets deeper, and by the time you reach here, you have water almost till your, like, a little above your waist. Okay. So you are like waist drenched in water while you are seeing this installation. So the idea of this artist was that you remember, I don't know how many of you remember, but the Syrian refugees, you know, during 2018 that was happening, there was this one incident that the father had found the body of his child on a seashore, you know, and this video had gone viral. So this was basically the representation of what the father must have gone through when he actually saw the body of the child in that seashore, you know. So that entire, so it actually, this place created that horror, because while you are entering, you don't know how deep the water is going to get, you know. So the fear the father must have gone, or the fear the child must have gone while he was drowning, was what the artist had tried to incorporate. And this has just remained in my head for so long, and I just thought that this is one memory that I really need to share with you. Okay, so this is May 2018. This is not a trip. This is in Bombay, but this was a breakthrough for reasons. Okay, this is an initiative by Faizan, which I'm working on illustrations for the same. It's been many years, we've still not finished, but this is a part of his bigger agenda. I'm just doing like 1-2% of the illustration. So because we all know that, I mean, people who know Faizan know his involvement in animals and all. So this is a part of his care for the animal thing. Okay. So what we were doing here, what I am doing here with Faizan is that we went around Bombay and we had started documenting stray dogs. Okay. And his idea was that pets have a family, but stray dogs have even bigger families, because there's no one family that the stray dog is with, you know. There are, if he's a stray dog, there are many people who are taking care of him. And our whole idea was to document these families of these stray dogs. So this is not even like 5% of the work. We have a lot more to go. But these are the few which have already been documented. So, right, starting from Kulaba to Shivaji Park, Santa Cruz, Versova, and some in Navi Mumbai. Now, there are these two dogs that I want to talk about. This is one is Cookie Jenny. This was Faizan's own pet who used to stay, so she who was there in the studio. Okay. Now, I mean, people who've known me for many years know that I have been shit scared of dogs ever since. Like, I was so scared of dogs, that I could cry if even they were in proximity. Okay. And there were two dogs in Faizan's studio. So every time we used to have a design discussion, we used to have it at Faizan's studio. And I used to be like sitting on like the, you know, on a place which was much higher than the dogs. And I have cried once during the meeting. Okay. Because this dog understood that I was scared, and he was being really mean, and he was trying to scare me. And Faizan understood that he knows that this one is scared, and he said, but while doing this, okay, I don't know if I've even told this to Faizan. The major breakthrough was that I have watched Faizan interact with the dogs, okay, and I was like, how this man does that? Like, he can pick up any dog on the street, okay, not bothering he's a stray dog, not bothering that he's dirty or he's filled with ticks. He was just pick him up and embrace him, you know. And I was like, dude, how does he do this, you know? So he started telling me, you know, Father, just touch them once. They do nothing to you. They absolutely do nothing to you. And that is how my journey with interaction of dogs started. It was because of this and because of Faizan also. Because now if people see me with dogs, they will never realize that how I was with dogs before. So that is so basically, so this is how we started documenting. So if you see this red line is the route the dog takes, and these things in circle are the places the dog sits, and the like sort of his their owners who feed them, you know. So their place is Faizan's studio, and because the dogs were at his studio, so that is a sketch of that. uh okay, this is another dog. Actually, I'm going to rush through this. I'll skip this story. Okay. So coming to Nagaland 2019. Okay, this is last year. So almost one of
And
the last trips that we had. Yes, sorry, Manthan.
unmute कर
I
दिया.
see Manthan very excited because Nagaland was a co-part of a summer school that me and Mukund did together, and we had kept it open, so there were students. It was optional for students to join in. Basically, it was not supposed to be a documentary thing. It was just going to see the place, learn architecture, and have fun. So this is Nagaland, and this is the entire route of Nagaland that we had. It was a 12-day trip, I think. Yeah, 12-day trip that we had, right from going from Calcutta to Dimapur and then reaching Nagaland. Okay, so this is the whole route, and these are the places that we visited. But just sharing a few memories of Nagaland back. So this is so on the first day of Nagaland, we were taken through like there was a guide with us, and he took us through Nagaland. Okay, and we were just amazed by the kind of place that Kohima. This is Kohima in Nagaland. Okay, now why I'm sharing this with you is that if you see this architecture, this building, they're made of tin sheets. Okay, they are rusted, beaten up tin sheets. So it's the most robust and crude material for architecture, and but because of the landscape that's around, if you see all of this now, they all are flowering plants. Okay, so the only color, so there is this brown reddish color of the building which has come from the rusted panels, and then there is this entire
Hello, Manthan.
Hello. I think
शायद
Fatima ma'am is just
अटक गया. हाँ.
अटक गया ना. I'll just check. Guys, okay, there's a technical fault. Just give us a minute.
We can see you, Fatima.
yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened.
वो कभी कभी होता है.
I'll just start my share screen again. Yeah. I'm just going to the slide where I want to show you.
Ma'am, it is visible now. Yes.
Okay, so this is Zuku Valley, and before we took this, it was supposed to be a very difficult climb. Okay, and before we started, and it was supposed to be a difficult climb because it was very steep for at least the first 3 hours, and then before we reached the plane. So we had this constant nagging, and we had Kaushal who was like, हम ये क्यों कर रहे हैं, पता नहीं हम ये क्यों चल रहे हैं, and he was like constantly nagging, and we were like all throughout our climb of this trip, he was just wondering why we are doing this. Okay, so but I'm sure he has no regrets now, but because this is the view that you see after you reach Zoco. Okay, so there are these acres and acres of manicured green. It's like literally manicured. It's like someone went and shaped these domes of green. But that's not really the reason why I'm sharing this story. The thing is that when we reached there, there was another team which was already standing there. Okay? I mean, they were ready to leave, and we had reached there. And these kids happened to talk to them, and they was like, so you are going to stay the night, and they raised the eyebrows. And so they had these things that, there are these external people, as in, I would call them spirits of the valley, name them spirits of the valley, and they really scared the shit out of us. If the night falls, you are going to hear sounds, and you imagine this is this one little house, and for like kilometers and kilometers, there is not a single soul you'll see. It's only green that you're seeing. So, so somehow we reached the night, okay? And we are geniuses, we already know that there is something, like people had informed us that there is something, spooky about this place. So what we do as geniuses, that night we sit and discuss ghost stories, okay? Just before sleeping, we had this entire session, we are discussing ghost stories, and we are actually, what we are doing, we are building up to our entire fears, We're like, okay, this is going to be a scary night, so let's start getting scared from now. It was like a warm-up of being scared, okay? And I really need to thank the students, because I was being a really an ass that time. And I have literally slept that night holding Aditi's hand. And the whole night, Aditi is like, ma'am, it's okay. You don't feel scared. Nothing is there. And constantly we are hearing sounds, okay? And no one is going to deny that we did hear sounds throughout. And there was this one time where Armia, one of the students, she gets up and she's like, listen, I need to pee, okay? And it's like 2 o'clock in the night, and we are like, no one is stepping out right now. It's like pitch dark outside. So Armia is like, okay, fine, everyone goes together. So it's a real funny memory now, but we were like really shitting in our pants then. So all 6-7 of us, we all go together out of this, because one of us wanted to use the washroom. So yeah, that's the memory of Zoco, and so this basically is a representation of what we call the spirit of the valley. Okay. So yeah, everyone who's traveled with me knows that how clumsy I am while traveling. Okay, and this is one very major thing that happened during. This is also Nagaland only, and this is this is a beautiful bamboo balcony that you can see there. So what happened? See, this is not my fault. Okay, partly if Swapnil is listening to this lecture, this is part Swapnil's fault. So I had this nice puppy in my hand, and Swapnil is like, Fatima, it's a very good picture. Let's take a good picture of you. So I was like, okay, take. So he's like, no, let's go to the bamboo balcony. It's a beautiful balcony. It is a beautiful balcony, right? It's a nice design bamboo balcony with these 2 trees coming out and all green behind. So I'm very excited. I go there and I was like, okay. So I run through the balcony, okay? And this is what happens. Now, if you see the difference in the sketch, you see that there is this one dent that has happened in the balcony, and that's the puppy which was in my hand, which ran off. So this dent is basically what happened is that just the lecture that happened before this mishap, the balcony was actually a demonstration of the mat flooring that you should not be using, because it was a very bad flooring. So he had kept that mat just to show the client that, listen, we can't use this mat because it is a bad mat. And I somehow missed that part of it, and I ran in the balcony. So the dent is caused by me. Now, I have not shown myself there, but actually this balcony is like cantilevered. It's a huge cantilevered balcony, which is almost like 2-3 floors high, okay? So below this balcony is a valley, okay? And I have fallen down. I'm not literally fallen. I'm still cantilevered. Half my body is up and half my body is down.
Yes.
And the puppy was in my hand, and the puppy ran off. Now, if you see, the puppy here is very happy, but actually, no. The puppy was shivering, okay? I could not show him sad. I can't show puppy sad now. So this is what happened, okay? But I have written the time for this. If you see, this is 4:30. The balcony is perfectly normal. 4:35, the dent has happened. And then, it's 4:45, okay? Now, 4:45, you see what happens? There are 2 dents. So what happened is that this clothesline was actually of the clothes that I just finished washing. and suddenly it had started raining, and there was a lot of wind. The was fed, and there's Ali, another student, who started yelling that, Fatima, your clothes, your clothes. And I was like, oh my God, I have just washed them. And I ran, okay, and I happened to run back on this balcony,
वापस
and there goes
dead
the
on.
second, sorry, and there goes the second dead, okay. So this is actually an demonstration of how clumsy I can get while traveling. And that is basically, please mind your foot while you're traveling. I mean, one of the major learnings of how not to travel in India. Okay, so these kids went back after Nagaland, but I couldn't go back. I was in the Northeast and I was like, I've come so far, so I have to continue my trip. So I continued my trip and I went to Meghalaya, and I did a bit of Assam also too. So this is my continuation. So this is, this is Dimapur. So from Nagaland, these kids went back home, and I continued my trip with another friend, Swarga. And we went to Shillong and Cherrapunji, and these are all these beautiful places that we saw around in my trip to Meghalaya. Okay. So this is Shillong. Shillong, we are not a tourist person. So the only place that we liked here in Shillong is the Wards Lake. No, it is genuinely a beautiful place, but that's the only place worth seeing in Shillong. We use Shillong as a transit and we moved ahead. Okay, so this is Meghalaya, okay. Now, one thing that we don't do while we are traveling is that we don't make an itinerary, which I already told you. But the reason why we don't make an itinerary is because we don't want to see pictures of the places, okay. That element of surprise, because the net is so filled with pictures, and at times the pictures are very beautiful because they're clicked with like DSLRs and fancy iPhones. But maybe the place becomes disappointing then, okay. So because of this notion, we avoid we avoid looking at the place before we go. So this is Dauki, and it's supposed to be one of the cleanest lakes in Asia or India. I think India. I don't think it will be Asia. So and this is where it joins Bangladesh. This is like the border of Bangladesh and India together. And this sketch is actually what the Dauki looks like, you know. So if you see this blue and you see the stones below, these stones below are almost like 30 to 40 feet down, and even some places 100 feet down. But the water is so crystal clear that when, if I would take a image from the above, you can actually see the stones deep down. So that's one. Okay, and this is again Meghalaya, and this is actually I can skip this one. Okay. This is my view from the homestay that we stayed in Molingnon. Molingnon is supposed to be one of the Asia's cleanest village. It was in 2012 it was declared, but now I think someone else has taken. But the reason why I've taken this image is that if you see these people cleaning the place now, they are not any BMC workers. You know, they are not workers, or they're not people who are supposed to do that. They are the people. They're the locals there, and this is their everyday thing. They just clean the place around them. So it's not only the house they're cleaning or the verandas they're cleaning, they're cleaning even the streets. It's perpetually just happening all throughout. And it's a beautiful, it's like how Chennai Express made that village that they have shown now, the module village. This is literally like a film set. The entire village is a film set. Reason why this image is shown is because of the next image is this, okay. So during the night, Molingnon doesn't have electricity. So after 6 o'clock, there's like load shedding, there's no electricity, okay. And this is the same place from our balcony that I'm looking out, and that whole night was filled with, you know, glow, like and we were like, I mean, this was like a show put up in front of us by the fireflies with absolutely no electricity around, you know. And I'm seriously, these are very few that I'm showing here in the sketch. But this, imagine this pitch dark, and everything that I can see is just because of the fireflies. So this is one memory that has stayed so like distinctly in my head. Okay, so after we finished Meghalaya, we reached Majuli. Uh, why the reason why I put this is again our travel luck that I want to talk about is that this is Brahmaputra. Okay, if you see, this is huge, and Brahmaputra is almost the width of Brahmaputra is 9 kilometers. So if I give you an idea of what 9 kilometers is, twice the distance from Bandra station to college. Okay, and that's the width of the river. Okay, so this river is 9 kilometers wide, and we are here, and we have to pass this, and we have to reach this one beautiful place called as Majuli. It's an island there. So people had told us not to use Brahmaputra because during the time that we had gone, it had already started raining in Assam, you know, and Assam rains are like heaviest rains in India because Cherrapunji being so close. And usually Brahmaputra floods during this time. So they had told us that please don't use this, but we were like, come on, now we've come so far, what far can happen? We took the risk. We went, we did Brahmaputra. We visited Majuli. This is the one beautiful. This is actually our homestay in Majuli, and it was raining. No, there is no story behind this, but the reason why I'm showing that is that the day so Majuli, and then we did Kaziranga, and Kaziranga is the rhino park which is here. The day we left for Bombay, there was a flood that happened in Brahmaputra. Okay, so the day I reached Bombay here, the flight that we took from Guwahati, in the news it had come that Brahmaputra was flooded, and after that day they shut the whole ferry, and Majuli was shut. So we were like just a day behind, you know, like absolutely one day behind from a major mishap that had happened. This again is a problem of traveling without a plan, because if there was an itinerary and there was dates written, we knew that we could not visit these places. But because we are such brilliant people, we don't travel without itinerary, and we just go as a day stay. So this is again a reason that don't travel like that. Make an itinerary. That almost comes to the last part of my presentation. The last trip that we had is Orissa, which was October 2009. This is the part actually of a documentary trip that we did with college students, Rizvi college students. Okay, and unfortunately, this vehicle is the only sketch of Odisha that I have. Actually, I feel terrible because I could not make. This is the only trip that I have not made a sketch, an absolute no sketch. But why this particular van is so important is that this trip was a very, very difficult trip in terms for the students and us, for the kind of rigorous documentation that we were doing, you know. So the whole class was divided into 3 vehicles, and there were like around 20 students in each vehicle, and this was the vehicle that I was in. Okay, and so this vehicle had actually become our place of solace, because we were staying in dormitories with not proper sleeping facilities, I admit it. So this had become like our convenient vehicle, you know, and this was a place of sorrows and our cribs, and all the troubles used to come out when we used to be in this bus. So all the gossip, all the tension that used to be there used to be released in this bus. Okay, so that's in fact the whole Odisha, everything that I remember is somehow connected to this bus, and the name of this bus was Jagat Janani. So yeah, that's all that I have for Odisha.
Oof, that was too long. No,
Yes.
just kidding. So we have tons of questions. And
Yeah. Just 1 minute. I'm almost ending. Okay, almost ending.
Yeah.
So this Maheshwar, Madhya Pradesh. We see the year. It's 2015. I'm going to take you to a flashback. The reason being because something that happened in this trip was a scar also, but was a memory I will never forget. Okay, so I think if someone has seen this presentation, has seen this part, my older presentation, knows this story beforehand. But sorry, okay, this is the only picture which is not done by me. Okay, this I wanted to give back a backstory of the story I was going to give is because of this movie. This movie is Khoon Bhari Maang. This movie was released in 1988, the year that I was born. Okay, but I have seen this movie much later. The backstory of this movie, it's a very creepy story, is that this is Rekha, the ex-girlfriend of Amitabh Bachchan, if you know Amitabh Bachchan. And this is Kabir Bedi. So Kabir Bedi is this horrible boyfriend who wants to take all the property of Rekha. So what he does, he tries to fall in love with Rekha. And this is the old Rekha, okay? And he tries to kill her to get the property. Now the way he kills her is actually what he does is he takes her for a trip in a river and he throws her out of the boat. Okay. Now the reason he throws her out of the boat is because the river has crocodiles. So he actually feeds her alive to the crocodile, and that's the creepy story of this movie. Now the reason why I'm telling you this creepy story of the movie is because of something that we faced. Okay. So this is Madhya Pradesh. This is Maheshwar Ghat. I don't know if people have been to Maheshwar Ghat, but the river that I'm showing is Narmada. Okay, I need a little of your visualization in this in this in this sketch. It's a very old sketch, so please don't judge my line work in this. This is 2015, okay, and this sketch was done on site, so it's terrible. It's terrible line work, but the memory is something that I can't forget. So this boat that you see, which is colored your blue, and just follow my arrow, okay, and this place that you see is the place that I was sitting in, okay, and it was an off season, so that is why there were not many tourists. I had another friend with me, Madhura, and this guy, he was ready. He's like, okay, I'll take you to the other part of the ghat, but we'd have to take the bigger boat because the it's rainy season and the smaller boats won't work. So we took this huge 20-seater, and it's only me, my friend, the driver, and one other friend of his was there with us. And just imagine I'm sitting here, okay, and we are here in the middle of the river. Now these two boats are drawn for aesthetic. Those boats didn't exist. It was just this one boat and me sitting here in the middle of the river. Now we were literally in the middle of Narmada. Narmada is also it's not as well as Brahmaputra, but it's huge. If you go and see Google, you know the width of the river. And we are taking this beautiful panorama of the Maheshwar Ghat, which is on the opposite side, okay? And the boat in the middle hits something. Now here I am sitting, imagine, at the tip of the boat. I'm taking a panorama, and the boat hits something in the riverbed. So what happens is that we take a flip. And we take a 90-degree flip, okay? So now you imagine there is this one 45-kilo Fatima sitting here, okay? And she flips with a 90-degree flip, which goes right in Narmada, okay? Now Narmada is literally 100 feet in the middle of the river. And we are there in the, we've drowned, okay? We've drowned with our phone and everything. I don't know what happened in the reaction on the boat up, but we are in the Narmada. And the only thing that I remember after I am there drowning is that there was a news that had flashed that Narmada has crocodiles. Okay. And then the first thought came, I was like, oh my God, not Khoon Bari Mang. I can't be eaten by crocodiles, man. I mean, this is the last day I want to die, you know. But this was like 10 seconds. And trust me, 10 seconds in that water. People say that you can swim, but if you are in this situation, I know swimming, you can't swim because you are so damn scared, okay? So this was 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, my entire flashback of my life had come to place, you know. I was like in my, like while drowning, I was saying sorry to everyone who had met. I was like, I don't think I'm going to meet you all again because this is my last again. But in like those 30 seconds, that guy came and he got me out of the boat. He got me out of the boat, and my friend is still there in shock. She's looking at me. She doesn't know what to react because she actually saw me flip and take like a 90-degree inside the water. And I just looked at her. And then we burst out laughing, okay? I mean, laughing like for another 20 minutes. You were just laughing and not understand. Shit, dude, what just happened? So yeah, that's the end of this. And this is usually the slide which I end my presentation. Thank you.